You wake to smoke. The air is thick, bitter, scratching the back of your throat. Outside your hut, shouting, neighbors fighting over a sack of maize. Somewhere in the distance, drums. But not the steady rhythm of a festival. These are desperate, frantic, like thunder, warning that something is breaking. The city you once knew as eternal is unraveling. Walls crumble where no masons repair them. Markets that once overflowed with cacao and jade now echo with hollow voices bartering scraps. The great reservoirs, empty. The gods, it seems, have turned their backs. You're not a king or a priest. You're just one among thousands who feel hunger gnaw at your bones. But you also feel the weight of something greater, centuries of grandeur collapsing all around you. This is what it was like to live through the Mayan collapse. Before the end, there was greatness. Imagine stepping into the Grand Plaza of Tikal. White limestone pyramids rise around you, their steps catching sunlight so bright it blinds your eyes. At the top, smoke curls from braziers as priests chant to the gods. Below, the plaza pulses with life, vendors calling prices, children weaving between stalls, the air thick with the scent of roasted maize and cacao. You feel the weight of the city pressing around you. Tens of thousands live here, supported by farmers who coax maize from the earth in endless cycles. Their sweat and labor fill the granaries. Their surplus feeds kings and priests who promise to hold the world together. The Maya had mastered time itself. Priests trace Venus across the night sky, predicting its rising and setting with uncanny accuracy. Entire calendars mark eclipses, harvests, festivals, even the destinies of rulers. Every cycle of stars is woven into daily life. When to plant, when to sacrifice, when to wage war. And there is beauty everywhere. Merchants arrive with obsidian blades sharp enough to split bone, with salt from distant coasts, with shimmering feathers from quetzal birds, so green they seem made of emeralds. Jaguar pelts drape the shoulders of nobles, and ball courts echo with the pounding rhythm of rubber balls, games where winners and losers may find themselves sacrificed, their fates woven into divine theatre. Life feels eternal. Each new temple rises higher than the last. Each ruler adds new monuments to his city. Each feast, each festival, reassures the people that the world is stable, that the gods are pleased. But prosperity carries its own shadow. The larger the cities grow, the more mouths must be fed. The greater the monuments, the more labor demanded from farmers and builders. The bloodier the wars, the more enemies watch for weakness. And beneath this grandeur, cracks are already spreading, though no one sees them yet. The first hint of collapse wasn't thunder. It was silence. You wake one morning and the air is still. No rain, no clouds, only heat. The maize in the fields droops. Leaves curled like fists, the soil cracks. Each step you take stirs dust. The rivers shrink, thin streams winding like dying snakes. You look to the sky. The gods have always answered before. Now, they do not. Days stretch into weeks. The sun burns without mercy. Animals vanish from the forest edges. Even the frogs, those noisy, sacred heralds of rain, fall quiet. In the city plaza, priests lift smoking bowls of copal. They chant, sway, cut their ears to spill blood onto paper strips. The smoke rises, but the clouds do not. Then the sacrifices grow darker. Prisoners of war march up the temple stairs. Their faces are painted blue. They know what it means. The obsidian knife glints in the sun. The crowd watches, some cheer, some whisper. You feel your stomach turn as the blade falls. Blood runs down stone steps, thick, bright, steaming in the heat. The people wait, but still, no rain. You hear new rumors. Farmers in the countryside abandon their fields. Whole villages pack up at dusk, carrying bundles, carrying children. The road fills with families moving west, away from the sun-scorched plains. When you return to your own home, you notice silence. 2 neighbors gone, doors left open, cooking fires cold. And yet, the kings demand more. More offerings, more tribute, more blood. You stand in the plaza as the ruler speaks. His jaguar cloak glimmers, his crown shines, but his face is pale. He raises his arms, calling for faith, for obedience, for patience. Around you, no one moves. Some nod, others scowl, and you feel it, something breaking. The great cities look eternal. Their white temples gleam in the sun. Their murals glow with painted gods. But beneath the stone, beneath the color, something unseen is crumbling. Order, trust, faith. The first signs of collapse are not loud. They are quiet, dry fields, silent skies, whispers in the market that the gods are deaf. You wonder if the silence itself is an answer. Hunger spreads like fire. What begins as scarcity becomes starvation. Granaries empty. Children's bellies swell with famine. Markets, once overflowing, now hold little more than husks and scraps. You wake at night to the sound of a neighbor pounding maize into gruel, thin, watery, barely food. You see mothers chew maize and spit it into their children's mouths, softening what little they have. Hunger changes people. It twists patience into rage. Crowds gather in plazas, not for festivals, but to demand food, answers, hope. They shout at kings who stand draped in jaguar pelts, demanding why the gods no longer listen. They jeer at priests whose rituals bring no rain. Fear becomes doubt. Doubt becomes anger, and anger becomes rebellion. Villages stop sending tribute to their overlords. Peasants raid food stores at night. Neighbors accuse neighbors of hoarding. Fights breaking out in the streets over baskets of maize. And in this chaos, loyalty shatters. Warriors once devoted to their lords now question whether they should serve starving kings or save their families instead. Would you cling to faith, still bringing sacrifices, still kneeling in smoke-filled temples? Or would you turn away, risking the wrath of gods you no longer believe in? This is not just hunger of the body, it is hunger of the soul. By now, survival has become war. Your king, desperate to feed his city, sends runners to call every man able to hold a spear. You are one of them. You don't want to go, but hunger leaves no choice. Refuse, and your family will be branded cowards, perhaps sacrificed to appease gods who never listen. You smear ash across your face. The obsidian spear they give you feels heavier than you expected. You march barefoot on cracked ground that cuts your soles raw. The jungle hums with insects, but above their buzz, you hear the shuffle of hundreds like you. Peasants turn soldiers, pressed into service. When you reach the enemy city, the stench hits first. Smoke, rot, sweat, you are thrown into battle almost at once. The clash is chaos. Screams pierce the air as obsidian blades slice flesh. Spears thud into shields. You lunge forward, striking, the jolt traveling up your arms as wood meets bone. Around you, men collapse, some clutching gaping wounds, others bleeding out silently into the dust. You kill, but you don't remember how. One moment you're shoving your shield forward, the next your hands drip crimson. And you realize the blood isn't only theirs, it's yours too. These wars are not fought for captives anymore. They are fought for fields, for maize, for water. Cities starve behind their walls, and those walls must be broken, so the sieges drag on. You sit outside the enemy city, hungry, thirsty, waiting for them to collapse. You gnaw on roots, drink foul water, swat insects that burrow into your skin at night. Corpses rot in ditches nearby, their smell mixing with smoke that never clears. You ask yourself, why are we here? What glory can there be in starving beside strangers, waiting for men on the other side of a wall to starve first? When finally the gates fall, you stumble in with the others. The streets are lined with the dead, their bodies unburied, dogs gnawing at limbs. You step over a child's toy left in the dirt, then over the child herself, eyes staring, mouth cracked open in silence. And yet, this is called victory. You carry back plunder, but there is no triumph in it, only smoke, ash, and faces you cannot forget. Would you fight again, knowing each battle gains less than it costs? Or would you flee, abandoning your city, abandoning your king, trying to survive on your own? Because if you stay, war is not finished. Another enemy waits, another march begins, and each one takes more of you than the last. Once you fought to honor the gods, but now each strike feels empty. This is when war stops being sacred. The blade in your hand weighs the same, the shield steadies the same. Yet the reasons for lifting them are unrecognizable. You remember when warfare followed the rhythm of time itself. Festivals marked the calendars, and wars were tied to ritual days. Armies marched in patterned cycles, their goal not massacre, but capture, especially nobles, seized as living offerings to the gods. Classic warfare aimed to capture nobles for ritual, a system where bloodshed carried meaning. But by the 8th and 9th centuries, conflicts grew harsher, more destructive, and often opportunistic. In those earlier years, combat had rules. Fighters entered the field painted in the colors of their gods, each strike a step in a cosmic order. Sacrifices renewed the cycles of time, affirming both divine favor and royal power. You trained, believing every blade you raised wove you into that balance. Actions held weight because you knew their meaning extended far beyond a single battle. Now that ordered memory feels like a faded dream, scarcity dissolves the codes warriors once trusted. Food is gone, water stripped away, rituals dull. The fight no longer waits for dates marked on carved stelae. Violence no longer pauses for ceremony or kings overseeing from the plaza. Instead, it breaks out suddenly, in forests or side streets, carried by desperation. You move through the night listening for footfalls, not of ritual enemies, but of other starving groups hunting you the same way they once hunted deer. In many regions, the old rules eroded or were suspended as hunger pushed aside calendars and banners. A single clay jar of maize or one gourd of water became enough reason to draw obsidian. These were not duels for glory. They were fast, ugly clashes, ending in dust and silence. When you look at the face of a body in front of you, it is often someone who once stood beside you in festival processions. Archaeology bears witness to this unraveling. Aguateca, once a fortified center of power, was stormed and burned around 810 CE. Palaces were abandoned in haste, households left with goods half used, A city caught in fragile pause between ritual duty and sudden ruin. These scars in the earth echo the very shift you feel, an old system collapsing under new rule. The contrast haunts every step you take. On plaza walls, fading murals still show noble warriors leading captured lords into ceremony. Ropes bind prisoners who step beneath banners, accompanied by dancers and drums. But beneath those same walls now lie stains of anonymous blood, spilled not for divine renewal, but because one family reached a water jar before another did. The painted stories peel in the sun, while you carry the truth in your hands, that warriors kill without witness, without song, just to survive another day. The toll climbs not only in bodies, but in spirit. You once understood who you were fighting for and why the fight mattered. Now you swing at neighbors who are as weak and helpless as you are. The question endures: if there is no clear enemy, no noble sacrifice to offer, what is the point of war at all? War that once upheld order now feels like open chaos. You cut a man not because he threatens your king or your gods, but because his hand reached for the same gourd of water. What follows isn't honor, it's a hollow silence heavy with shame. Even the stones themselves confess the shift. You remember when scribes filled monuments with lists of victories, dates carved deep into stele so that future generations could read the line of kings and conquests. But now the carver's tools fall silent. Triumphs grow scarce, campaigns leave no stories worth etching into stone. The plazas carry no new inscriptions. What battles occur bring no language of glory, only memories too bitter to preserve. In silence, the memory of order dies just as surely as the rituals. And so you come to an uneasy conclusion. The gods did not suddenly vanish or roar their retreat. Their presence faded as warriors themselves let go of what had once made fighting sacred. People abandoned the rules step by step until war became nothing more than raw survival. The banners faded first, then the painted feathers, then the rituals. What stays behind is hunger, thirst, and killing without purpose. And without sacred war to bind people together, a deeper fracture opens. The question is no longer how to bring captives to the gods. It becomes whether you can still fight for a leader who cannot keep you alive. You once looked to the temple steps for certainty, but now all that rises there is doubt. This is the shadow of the king, the weight of a ruler who no longer feels divine. In Maya cities, the ruler was not only a man. He was the divine lord, the Kuhulajau, the link between earth and sky, the mediator who stood between your suffering and the god's power. When you swore loyalty, it was more than loyalty to a person. It was a vow to the cycle of rain, harvest, and victory that he embodied. You bowed because his voice promised balance. That power, however, carried limits. This was never a single great empire under one crown, but a patchwork of city-states, each with its own Kuhulajau, claiming divine descent and ritual authority. Kings rose and fell, not as emperors of all Maya lands, but as sacred lords of their cities, tied into alliances and rivalries. His strength was measured in swollen fields, full reservoirs, and prisoners brought back as sacrifices. As long as those things flowed, divinity seemed secure. Yet when the rains failed and the rituals brought no change, it was common for people to hold their rulers responsible. A king could not simply be unlucky when his entire identity was bound to divine order. Now you watch your own king climb the temple stair. He still wears jade and feathers, his arms raised as incense drifts into the open air. He prays for rain, for abundance, for renewal. But the skies remain blank. The earth cracks deeper, and the harvest withers. Ritual once felt like promise. Now it feels like theater. You kneel because you are told to, but the kneeling no longer comes with the certainty that fed your belief. Around you, soft voices join into whispers. A true Kuhu La Jiao would summon rain. A divine lord would not let children starve while his incense smolders unanswered. The change spreads quietly through daily life. Once crowded shrines lose their worshippers. Clay icons crumble on hillside altars without repair. Families burn less incense, reserving what little resin remains for moments of need, not public festivals. Even the palace looks less eternal. Its storerooms, once heavy with maize and tribute gifts, grow hollow. Guards walk slower, their hunger written into their bodies. Everyone sees it. When the center weakens, the rings around it fray. It grows harder to obey. Friends whisper doubts as you march under the sun. You ask who truly benefits from raids, who will eat from this campaign, who bleeds so that the palace can pretend its stores are not empty. Each battle carries less conviction, each order feels heavier. Some warriors drift away, guarding only their own families. Others conceal whatever maize they seize, hiding it under roof beams rather than carrying it up the palace steps. Kinship replaces kingship. The fire you circle at night feels more real than the banners fluttering above the plaza. And so the king's shadow grows thin. Once it stretched across every street and shrine, filling them with sacred presence. Now it flickers, a dim outline in the glare of sun that no prayer disperses. You still see him on the temple heights, arms stretched wide beneath the silent sky. But everyone knows he is a man dressed in feathers, not a vessel of the gods. When that image breaks, the weight of loyalty breaks with it. The voice that commanded thousands no longer reaches far beyond the palace walls. What follows is not sudden collapse, but the loosening of bonds, city by city, alliance by alliance, until once proud capitals seem brittle and hollow. And when the shadow of kings falters, the maps themselves begin to change. The wars do not save the Maya cities. They destroy them. One by one, the centers of power crumble, not in a single night, but slowly, painfully, like a candle burning down to its last flicker. You return home after battle to find your own city weaker than when you left. Crops still fail. Reservoirs are lower, families are fewer. And the king demands more, always more. He orders new temples to be built, higher than before. Monuments meant to prove he still holds favor with the gods. You are sent back to labor, heaving stone blocks under the sun, your back breaking as sweat blinds your eyes. You know these temples are lies. You feel it as you strain under the weight of each stone. The king's power shrinks even as the temples rise. The gods stay silent, and each sacrifice feels emptier than the last. But disobedience is death, so you keep building, stone after stone, temple after temple, while your family starves. And still, the people leave. Villages empty, markets fall silent, whole neighborhoods vanish in a season. Some say they've fled into the forests, others whisper of mass graves. You walk through plazas that once thrummed with life, now echoing only with the calls of birds. Abandoned stelae proclaim the victories of kings no one remembers. Half-built pyramids stand like broken teeth in the jungle, their plaster cracking, vines clawing up their sides. You pause at one such temple, half finished. You run your hand over the rough stone, feeling the grooves left by workers' hands, the same hands that once built with pride. And you wonder, did they give up? Or were they forced to stop by hunger, by war, by despair? Would you keep building if you knew it meant nothing? Would you carve your life away for rulers who promise eternity while the world around you dies? By the late 9th century, collapse is everywhere. Cities that once ruled thousands now lie quiet. Smoke no longer rises from their hearths. Roads no longer carry traders. The jungle begins to reclaim what people no longer can hold. You wander through ruins that once stood at the heart of the world, and though you live, you feel as if everything that gave life meaning has already died. And yet, despite everything, the Maya did not vanish. Even as the great cities crumbled, the people endured. Families retreated to smaller villages. They carried their gods, their rituals, their calendars. The Maya survived, not as the kings and empires of old, but as a people who adapted. For those who lived it, collapse was not numbers in a history book. It was smoke in your lungs, hunger in your belly, the sound of your neighbor turning on you for food. It was the silence of temples abandoned, the betrayal of gods who never answered. Historians still argue, was it drought, overpopulation, war? But if you had lived through it, would you call it nature's wrath or the slow death of faith itself? This was what it was like to live through the Mayan collapse.